Let's start out with some networking basics and definitions. As anywhere else in our environments, we use defense in depth both our internal networks and when our data is sent over the internet. We try to ensure that our networking devices, the protocols we use, and the traffic we send is as secure as possible. We talked about simplex communications before. It's always a one-way communication. One system transmits, the other system listens. If with simplex solutions we need bidirectional communication, we would need two connections. With half-duplex connections, we can both send and receive, but only one at a time. If we have two connected nodes, node A and node B, if node A is sending to node B can't send anything. Once node A is done sending, then node B can send. Full duplex is different. With full duplex, we can both send and receive from both systems at the same time. In baseband networks, we have one channel. We can only send one signal at a time, and this is what we most commonly use. Ethernet is baseband. So 1000 base T shielded twisted pair cable is really just 1000 megabit baseband shielded twisted pair cable. If we talk about broadband, they have multiple channels. They can send and receive multiple signals at a time. We're going to go a little more in depth with these later, but for now just understand the concepts and how communication over each of them functions. Just like at some point I'm going to tell you there is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer, you could maybe use the same analogy on the internet. There is no internet. It's just thousands of peer-to-peer networks. It is really just a huge patchwork of internet service providers and long-haul providers. But for most of us, we don't see all the behind the scenes. It just seems like one seamless place where you can send and receive data very easily. An intranet is an organization's privately owned network. It's very common for large organizations to have them. It's all the stuff that happens once we pass our firewalls and our DMCs. And an extranet is a connection between intranets. This is often a connection between business partners or in really large corporations. The smaller divisions can have an intranet that is then in turn connected to a larger extranet. When we talk about connections between two different sites, normally either use a circuit switching or a packet switching technology. Circuit switching is expensive, but it's always there and is not very commonly used. If we have circuit switching between two of our sites, we would have a dedicated communication channel through the internet provider's network, and our traffic will always take the same path each time. We have a guarantee for our bandwidth, and from our two end nodes, logically it looks like they're connected directly. The reason it's not so commonly used is because of the price. If you need to have the guaranteed bandwidth through an ISP's network, they need to reserve that bandwidth for you, and most of what they do is oversubscribing. So you pay for the full bandwidth regardless of if you've used it or not. The vast majority of connections today are packet switching. This is where the ISP oversubscribes, because very few people actually use the full internet connection they have. Same goes for companies too. There might be a 10 gig network between our two sites, and the ISP might oversubscribe it at 100 rate. So even though they only have a 10 gig backbone, the people who pay for the services actually have 1000 gig connections. Well, they're paying for it at least. But that is very rarely a problem, because people don't use their full internet connection. They use a very small fraction of the actual connection they have. If you download a large file, you'll obviously use the whole connection, but then the other 1000 subscribers that are on the same line don't, which makes it work. So back to packet switching. It's cheap, but you don't have a guarantee for the bandwidth, and when data is sent, one package can take one path, and the next a second path, and the third packet a third path, and they're then all reassembled at the destination. If you look at the images over here on the right, you can see in the circuit switching network, every single package is sent the same path from site A to site B, whereas in the packet switching network, multiple different paths are used, and the packets are reassembled at their destination. The path the packets are sent on is determined by each router in between site A and site B. Each router would look at its routing table and say, to get to site B, this is the best path I know. And obviously in real networks, there's not only going to be 2 or 4 in between site A and site B, but for simplicity, think of it as images over here on the right. And if there's a circuit switching, you have the whole circuit, you have your dedicated circuit for just your traffic. If it's packet switching, each packet can take another path. Since some data for us is more critical than others, we can use quality of service or QoS. In quality of service, we assign a specific priority to all traffic. So for anything where we need near to real-time communication, we will give that a higher priority. That could be voice over IP or video over IP. And then all other traffic that's not reliant on real-time communication is down prioritized. If you go to a website, you probably won't notice 100 or 250 milliseconds delay, but if you're on a phone call, it's going to sound distorted and weird if you had that delay. And those of you who are not so familiar with this topic, the latency or delay on networking traffic is measured in milliseconds. Millisecond is 1,000th of a second. So 100 milliseconds would be a tenth of a second, 250 milliseconds, a quarter of a second. And that's called delay, response time, or latency. We have many different types of networks. Some you may be familiar with, some not. A PAN, or Personal Area Network, is the very close network used between your computers and your network devices, really only for one person, hence Personal Area Network. That could be your PCs, printers, scanners, consoles, anything really you have within reach or within your immediate area. The devices can be connected with USB, FireWire, or they can be wireless devices with Bluetooth or infrared. It's really the stuff you can touch within arm's reach, or you can get up, walk a few feet and touch it. A LAN or local area network is an extension of that. That's all the computer and the network devices that are in a small geographical area. That could be your home, your school, office building, or a campus. In our LANs, each device on our network is a node. This can both be over wired and wireless networks. It's geographically constrained. It is a smaller area, a building, a campus, a school. A MAN, or Metropolitan Area Network, is then the next step up. It's a large network that covers a city, or in some cases large campuses. Huge colleges, huge companies. If they have their own infrastructure between the sites, it would be a MAN. WANs we talked a little bit about earlier, where I said the internet is just a bunch of WANs that are connected. WAN, Wide Area Network. They span large geographical areas. It can be as small as a city, but it can also be countries, or even intercontinental. And WANs use many different types of media. You can use phone lines, backbone cables, C cables, or airwaves. When I worked at the IP backbone at an internet service provider in Denmark, I think our WAN spanned 3 or 4 countries. Bear in mind, Denmark is a tiny country, but some of the other countries were a little bit bigger, so maybe for reference, I think our WAN network would cover something the size of California. And then on each of our edge nodes, that's the nodes on the outsides of our network, we would connect to other service providers. So if someone from Denmark wanted to access a website in Italy, go through our network, probably exit out to a German internet provider, they would hand it off to an Italian internet provider, and then the traffic would make way to the website we're looking for. For us on the front end, it seems seamless, but at the networking back end, there's a lot more happening. A VPN, or Virtual Private Network, is not a network in the sense that the others are, but it's a traffic tunnel from site A to site B, often used by people who work remotely. The VPN is a secure tunnel through a non-secure network like the internet, and once used, the look and the feel for the remote worker is the same as if they're plugged into a wall socket at the corporate office. And finally, we have a GAN, a Global Area Network. Global Area Networks are used to support mobile users across many different technologies and protocols to ensure that the mobile user can use their device wherever they are, and if they're moving from one technology, one area to another, it should to some extent be seamless. We don't want the end user to know that they're switching from one network to another. We don't want the quality of the calls to drop. Just like when you're walking through the office with a laptop. If the office is big enough, your wireless connection might jump from wireless access point A to B to C depending on how far you move. For you as an end user, you should never notice this. As far as you know, the device is always connected and there's no interruption.